It's My Nerd World and Depeche Mode, the podcast. On this week's episode, we got a brand new video, like it just dropped a couple of hours ago. I'll continue with my Depeche Mode albums ranked part 2. A little bit more information about the band returning to the stage this evening in Mexico, and the talk and rumors about Mexico being the location for the live DVD, Blu-ray, physical release of the tour, and of course, your listener feedback.
Hello, this is Martin Gore from Depeche Mode.
Hi, this is Dave Gahan from Depeche Mode, and you are listening to
My Nerd World.
Welcome to it. I'm your host, Jon Justice, Depeche Mode, the podcast, here once again to talk about the greatest band in the world, Depeche Mode. Very excited to hear the band returning to the stage tonight in Mexico, just a few hours away at the time of the recording of this podcast, following several individuals, Pt2, Museo, Depeche Mode, the global fan group, Rob Rome on Twitter, seeing the various tweets that have been posted today. Everybody looking forward to tonight's show and potential for a change-up in the set list. We'll see. Also, I want to get into the rumors that I've been sharing on the show as it relates to the band getting off of their vacation and getting back on the road. Want to mention quickly, speaking of the global fan group, there's several individuals have been posting, including Rob. Classic Pop Magazine has put together an article with an interview with Daniel Miller, just a bit of a retrospective in his thoughts of his time with Mute Records and, of course, the band. So I would encourage you to go and seek out that article. Pretty good stuff in that. I may cover it a bit on next week's episode. So first off, let me update you on the rumor and potential of the concerts in Mexico being used and filmed for the live physical release of the Memento Mori tour. So my contact, who had the opportunity to speak with Peter Gordino, I believe it was in Oslo, reached out to me after last week's episode. As I've mentioned on the show, he had said that Peter told him that there would be filming done in Mexico, and potentially this would and could mean that the 3 nights in Mexico City could be used for the live physical release, and that made all the sense in the world to me. It would be a different location than what we're typically used to seeing when the band goes and records for the live physical release. There has been a lot of discussion and quite a bit of actual official news that there is some filming that is being done in Mexico City for a European television special. And so there's been, some talk back and forth, and the rumors kind of spread around and came off of this show, and then the other commentary about the other filming being done. Some other individuals over this past week, have posted some other Depeche Mode news outlets that they had heard that the rumors were wrong, and I addressed this on last week's show. So my original contact, who had the chance to talk with Peter Gordino, he got back to me this week after hearing last week's episode, and essentially said that the mention from Peter Gordino about filming in Mexico could indeed just have been about the special that's being filmed for the European television show and not the live concert. So I initially extrapolated that filming in Mexico makes sense, that they would go and film the shows. You got 3 nights to choose from to edit and put together an entire concert package for a physical release. Then we got the news of the filming on the streets with the band, and he is now saying that more than likely that's what Peter was referring to, since we don't have any official confirmation that they're using these shows in Mexico for the physical release, and there have been other sources that have checked with their people and said that those shows are not being filmed for the physical release. So I was going to wait until tomorrow to do today's show That way I would have the opportunity to share the set list. But I really wanted to come out today and address that directly to avoid any confusion before tonight's show. I doubt that we would get the information tonight unless it was clear that there was a second filming crew at tonight's show that would definitely lend itself to evidence that they're filming the shows for a live physical release. So again, it looks as if my assumption of Peter Gordino's contents was relating to the special and not the shows being recorded for the concert release. So we'll see what shakes out, and it could still happen. But at the moment, I'm leaning more towards Mexico not being the location for the live physical release. So I got home today and took care of a few things, got my lunch, sat down, was thinking about this week's episode, going to recording the Depeche Mode show here. I'm going to be doing my Star Wars podcast afterwards. And as I often do, I got my sandwich, got in my comfy chair, turned on YouTube, and was looking for something to watch. And the moment YouTube popped up, there it was, posted 44 minutes ago, prior to the time when I sat down to have my lunch, the official Depeche Mode YouTube channel posted the video for my favorite stranger. So, of course, as a good Depeche Mode fan, I went and immediately hit play. This was clearly the same footage that was shot for when My Favorite Stranger is performed live. Initially, the band had been using the imagery for Speak to Me. And then, I don't know at what point and what leg of the tour they switched it over to when they were doing My Favorite Stranger to the new footage. But it appears to be the same footage that people have seen during the concert, much in the same way they've used Ghosts Again as the background footage for the live version of Ghosts Again. It is a video clip of a woman dressed as a man. The start of the video is her clearly urinating on a tree before walking through a forest and then into a city, looking into some storefronts before arriving at her destination, walking in, taking off her hat, letting her hair down, and removing her mustache. It's all in black and white. That's essentially the entirety of the video. Look, it's a nice enough clip. I'm usually not very critical. I will say, though, that I'm kind of disappointed. I know that it doesn't change anything relating to the popularity of the band. And for the sake of argument, a better video probably doesn't go and prompt anybody to purchase the album or check out the album that hasn't gone and done this already. We are well beyond those days of videos driving the sale of singles, and we've moved away from singles as well anyhow. That being said, I really enjoyed the Ghosts Again video. Upon first watch, I was a little underwhelmed, but after watching it a few times, I enjoyed the video quite a bit. Less so with Wagging Tongue. I missed the band in Wagging Tongue, and I certainly missed the band in this clip as well. I'm fairly certain this is an Anton Corbijn shot video. My apologies for not looking at that further. I know that Wagging Tongue was not Anton Corbijn, even though it felt like Anton Corbijn. Disappointed it wasn't Don't Say You Love Me, which was teased at the end of Wagging Tongue. But this album is so strong and opens up the door to so many visual possibilities that I can't help but be underwhelmed. I guess I won't say disappointed. You know, I'm assuming this is Anton, and if it's Anton, I'm not surprised, right? Anton's videos are what Anton's videos, are. And the imagery in and of itself, I think, plays well for the tour, where you're focusing on the band and you can kind of shift your focus back and forth. You've got some interesting black and white imagery going, an individual walking along while My Favorite Stranger, plays. That all fits well. But, by itself, watching it on a TV screen, you've got such strength in the lyrics and so many possibilities that there's a big part of me that wishes we would have gotten something a little bit more dynamic and something that tells a little bit more of the story or leans into the lyrics, even in an ambiguous way. Again, I know that the motivation to do that would be promotion, right? I mean, the videos initially, when they were created, were promotional vehicles to expose more people to the music. Over time, they ended up becoming creative outlets, and we still have MTV Video Music Awards just occurred, although I haven't watched one in probably over 10 years at this point in time. And you still have people that are doing interesting dynamic videos. I think, what is it, Olivia Rodrigo? I've seen her video in passing, where she's multiplied through the video. Man, that's an incredibly shot and interesting video. So with this album and how much I love this album, I just wish we would have gotten a little bit more from the My Favorite Stranger video. I was chatting with my friend Jon Justice, John Justice. He had messaged me about the video, and he basically said he wasn't disappointed. Anton's always had weird videos. He feels that Wrong is one of Depeche Mode's best videos, and Anton didn't even do that one. I think for me, some of my favorite videos, and I should spend a podcast going through them, are some of Anton's. Walking in My Shoes specifically is probably the first one that comes to mind. I will rank, when I do my ranking, A Policy of Truth over and Enjoy the Silence, even though I think that's an amazing clip as well. All that being said, going full circle, My Stranger gets kind of a big meh from me. But what about you? Email me, thejonjustice, thejonjustice at gmail.com. If you are listening or watching on YouTube, you can leave a comment there as well. All right, let's get into your listener feedback. I do have more content to share, but it's really going to be embedded within the listener feedback and the fan spotlight today. So let's go ahead and dive into the listener feedback for this week. Again, at thejonjustice at gmail.com or on YouTube. Melissa, and you're all friends of the show for the sake of moving through listener feedback. So Melissa writes, just for kicks, I Googled how to pronounce Nitzer. I was talking about this on last week's episode. I've always said Nitzer, and a video short of the band members came up, and 2 said Nitzer. And the last guy said you can say it both ways, so I guess everybody's right. That is such a rarity when it comes to the pronunciation of things. Usually there is definitely one side that is dominant over the other, but that's probably the reason why we've heard both Nitzer and Nitzer. And I wonder if that's regional, too. I wonder if Nitzer is more of a U.S. thing where Nitzer is more of a European thing. But thank you for looking that up, Melissa, doing my job for me. Writing friend of the show, Danielle Manette writes, I was listening to the latest episode of the podcast when I heard you mention Live in Hamburg, and my heart skipped a beat. I had totally forgotten about it. I had the VHS tape of this concert back in the day, and I must have watched it 1,000 times. It was the only live performance video recording of the band to buy until 101 came out. It was one of the most precious possessions when I was 15 years old. It also inspired the story I wrote with a friend about us joining the band on tour. It was everything. After I heard you mention it on your show, I found it on YouTube. I've just spent the last hour and 22 minutes back in 1985. It gave me all the feels. Big, goofy grin, tears in my eyes, butterflies in my stomach, the works. Nostalgia is too weak a word to describe how it made me feel, but I know you get it. Thanks again for your podcast. No, I absolutely do, and I have set that in my watch list for this weekend when I've partaken in some spiced rum. And I'm in a good headspace where I can sit down and watch that because it's been... Yeah, I mean, I haven't watched The World We Live in Live in Hamburg since I had the VHS tape. So, I mean, it's been decades, a plural, since I've watched that. And much like you, prior to 101, that VHS tape got worn out. Yeah, it really is. I wish the band would. Let's put it that way instead. I won't say it's a bummer. Let's just say I wish the band would release that. It would be nice to have. But who knows? Maybe this talk of getting Strange and Strange 2 remastered, maybe that could be something combined along with it. I mean, when you go back and think about the amount of physical releases the band had in the non-audio formats, I'm talking about videos and things like that, there really wasn't a lot. I mean, so you could do a package that included Strange 2, The World We Live in, Live in Hamburg. Even toss in some of the weirdness that we got, for those that remember, of the Free Love DVD that was released. If you all... I don't even know. It's around here somewhere. Is it in here? Hold on. I'm just turning over to my side, and I want to see if I have it readily available. I got to move some stuff around. That's my Live in Hamburg. That's my 101 box set. No, I don't. It's in the other cabinet, so it's in that cabinet over there. So I have two in my desk. I've got two glass cabinets where I keep all my physical Depeche Mode collectibles, and it's the other one that has the DVD. That was such a weird. It was such a weird release. I remember I was so excited for it. And I remember going to Music Plus to get it, and then getting it, and I was like, okay, this was kind of a disappointment. But they could throw that on it, too. So, all right. If the band's listening, I still want to interview you. One, no one ever got back to me. And two, put that out as well. All right. Rome Ed writes, I've started reading the new DM book called DM on Track. Every song, every album, every song. Promoted that several podcasts ago. I just finished the first part, Speak and Spell. My question to you is, had you read this book? I have not yet. I've read a portion. I think I probably read about as much as you have. The first part of it. The author was kind enough to send me a PDF of it, but I've not read it in its entirety. He says, if yes, what do you think about it? So far, I love it. I really enjoyed what I had read of it. Honestly, it's just been a time issue. I've been reading some other things, so I've got it on my list, but I haven't had a chance to get much farther than the first few albums. There's stuff in it I had no idea about. My favorite part so far, is when they talk about the song Sometimes I Wish I Was Dead, where the cover had Dave lay on a coffin. Almost an unintentional foreshadowing of what's to come later, early 90s to be exact. Thank you for continuing your show. Thank you, Rome. I appreciate the feedback, as I do everybody's. And yeah, I'm glad that everybody's going out and picking up that book. That's awesome. Tool 46 and 2. I'd be super stoked with any Mexico recording filming. It would be outside DM's wheelhouse of filming recording spots / recording spots while highlighting an awesome sector of fans. Dig everything you put out, John. Thank you for your stellar podcasts. Cheerio. Thank you, Tool 42 and 6. Next up, Jason writes, hi, John. To further those Mexico rumors you've commented on the last few shows, an extract from DepecheMode.de, the website, which is a very reliable source and not prone to publishing news on wild rumors or speculation. They write, DM concert, a DM documentary or concert recording. Rumors of a possible recording of performances have been sprouting around the concert for a few days while Anton Corbijn shoot the material for the concert film. The only thing that seems certain is that the band, together with a well-known Mexican film director Fernando Frias, is currently working on a documentary about the concerts. It's unclear whether the material is shot for a TV documentary or for something bigger. Now, let me throw out another possibility here. So I've laid out what I know. It seems clear something's being filmed. And I was waiting until this portion of the podcast to add this detail into it to go further. I wanted to, again, first sort of clear the air over expectations for the filming taking place in Mexico. However, knowing that this film director, Fernando Frias, is a well-known Mexican film director, and the documentary, according to DepecheMode.de, says it is a documentary about the concerts, then it makes sense to me that you would have this director also shoot the concert itself. Okay? Again, pure speculation. There's one more angle on this, too, and that is the holiday around the Day of the Dead in Mexico. The imagery around the album itself, whether it's the funeral floral arrangements, the title, obviously, Memento Mori, remember you will die, remember you must die, the imagery of the skulls, it would make even more sense to have there be a whole Day of the Dead theming going on. I mean, that imagery within the Mexican culture in and of itself leans right into everything in terms of the artwork for Memento Mori and even, the subject matter of many of the songs on the album itself. I think that would be a really fantastic way to package, any documentary or certainly even the concert release. Step out of the normal what we see in just terms of a straightforward, concert release package and go that route. When you consider, say, what Anton Corbijn did with Spirits in the Forest, and riffing off the theme of the album being called Spirit in and of itself, and keeping the theming there, this makes a lot of sense to me. So, again, perhaps there will be filming of the concerts anyway. Now, you could easily do what I just mentioned and then include concert shot in a different location by Anton. There's nothing in terms of the director of this documentary being a Mexican film director that him being behind the camera is going to change any of the dynamic of what's captured, unless he's known for sort of his artistic flair. So I imagine that once we get past these few shows, we'll know more. As a matter of fact, this kind of goes in well with my next piece of listener feedback, and thank you, Jason, as always. Ramon Arcos Buchez writes, "Good morning. I've been a DM fan since '89. I've been a member of the home forum since it was called Halo, if I remember correctly. I'm a producer and songwriter. Been listening to your podcast for a while now. I love it. Congrats. I will be attending the 3 DM shows here in Mexico City. The first one in the front, second one in the middle, and the third one in the back with my children. Let me know if you would like a review of the shows. I'd be happy to do it. I'm also giving a few links to songs that he produced with one of the most famous synth bands in Mexico. Cheers, Ramon." Yes, Ramon, absolutely. Please send me over your thoughts of the shows. I'd love to hear it. And thank you for sharing me your songs as well. Really enjoyed listening to those, and I'll expand on that further on a later episode. But I always like it when people expose me to new music, and this was music that I was completely unfamiliar with. So again, thank you for the feedback, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on the show. All right, let's get into our next one, which comes from Dave Theofolt, who says, "Loved your show last week and definitely wanted to be a part of it. Here is my favorite list." This is the albums ranked. And yes, I know a lot of people will disagree. So here we go. Number 1, Memento Mori. Songs of Faith and Devotion, Violator, Delta Machine, underrated gem. Music for the Masses, Ultra, Sounds of the Universe. Some Great Reward, Black Celebration, Playing the Angel, Exciter, Broken Frame, Construction Time Begins, Speak and Spell, and then at 15, Spirit. I've tried to, but no. Thank you again for what you do, David. I love the list. Thank you for sharing. I don't really have much to add, except that it once again shows how subjective art is. And that's just why I love that. I love the fact that somebody, and David, I love the fact that you have Memento Mori at number 1 and Delta Machine of all the albums at number 4. I think that's great. I mean, even though we disagree, I just think it's fantastic that people have different tastes, and I'll talk a little bit more about this in a moment when I get into part 2 of the albums ranked, because this is going to fit in nicely with some of the things that I want to share. All right, Rob writes in. Now that we are just out from the start of the tour in North America, I thought it'd be fun to share my ideal, still somewhat realistic set list for upcoming shows. Imagine the boys drop My Cosmos' Mine and start things off with Black Celebration. I like where your head's at. How epic would it be to set the tone for their evening with those lyrics? Let's have a Black Celebration tonight. I'm with you that some of the best songs on Memento Mori have yet to be performed, so I included ones that I would love to hear in place of all the previously played songs, other than Ghosts Again. I think if The Sun and the Rainfall were to be performed, the only place it would work would be in the early first third, close to where Sister of Night was performed. I can't imagine it in the encore, thinking back to when the band did Photographic in 2006, and there were critics from much of the casual audience. On the other hand, in terms of a rarity for an encore, imagine they start with the encore with Somebody before going into the full band performance of But Not Tonight with Dave singing. This would totally get the audience hyped, and singing with the Martin outro. So here is Rob's dream set list. Black Celebration, People Are Good, Walking in My Shoes, Behind the Wheel. Don't Say You Love Me, The Sun and the Rainfall, Precious. And then we would get Shake the Disease, Acoustic, Martin. Home, Martin full song. Ghosts Again, I Feel You, Fly on the Windscreen, Everything Counts. World in My Eyes, Never Let Me Go, Stripped. Policy of Truth, Enjoy the Silence, with the encore of, as he mentioned, Somebody, But Not Tonight. Dave singing with the full song, Personal Jesus, and Never Let Me Down Again. That would be an amazing set list. Like, the only things that if we're going with, like, fantasy set lists, like, the only things that I would change would be I would be throwing in some really obscure tracks, like a My Joy that they would never do. One thing that I don't expect them to do, but they could because they've done this in the past, and that is replace My Cosmos Is Mine with the Anna mix, and keeping with the same up-tempo versions of Memento Mori songs, replace the version of Speak to Me with the high-low remix, much like they did with The Pain That I'm Used to. I had made a playlist, and I was out on a ride the other day, and on it I have both the Speak to Me high-low mix, and I have the Anna mix of My Cosmos Is Mine, and I was thinking this exact same thing when I was writing, that wouldn't it be awesome if they switched it up and they did the Anna mix of My Cosmos Is Mine. Now, I'm not suggesting they do a 1-to-1 on that particular mix, just because it's got some long instrumental portions of it and not the entirety of the lyrics. I think they'd have to do an edit and bring it together, but still keeping with the beat. But with Speak to Me in the high-low mix, you could absolutely do that completely. Even though they repeat the lyrics, I think it would work great live. I don't expect them to do this, but I would be down for it. Either way, Rob, I think your set list is amazing, and I would be totally fine with going and seeing that live. All right, lastly, let's get back into Albums Ranked Part 2, and we'll do the Fan Spotlight. All right, this is completely self-serving. I'm taking the Dreaming of Me angle on this. And the Fan Spotlight is, well, it's me. So I put this list together, as I mentioned last week. A friend of the show, a friend of mine, Matt, we had put together our lists of the albums ranked, and I shared last week his, and this week I'm sharing with mine. So first off is we have my instinctive reaction. This was me giving myself a few minutes to put the albums in order without much thought apart from instinct and sentimental value. So my albums ranked, sort of the gut check version was Songs of Faith and Devotion, Violator, Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Memento Mori, Some Great Reward, Exciter, Sounds of the Universe, Ultra, Construction Time Again, Playing the Angel, A Broken Frame, Delta Machine, Spirit, and Speak and Spell. Now, in truth, Speak and Spell actually gets a little bit higher ranking. And this is what I wanted to talk about briefly before I get into my more comprehensive ranking and the way that I assigned a point system for the albums and its tracks. You know, thankfully, we don't ever have to do this as fans. Thankfully, we'll always have these albums. Nobody's taking away from them. The house isn't on fire, and we can only grab a few of them. So we'll never have to go and deal with not having any of these albums. Because if you're like me, you probably, you go back and forth listening to them. And different songs carry different weight and popularity based off of mood and time. And I was thinking about this on the drive into work this morning, oddly enough, doing my Star Wars podcast, talking about the Ahsoka series, which I've absolutely loved. It's rekindled my lifelong love of Star Wars. And a lot of that's because of the emotion that the show's been drawing out of me. And it got me thinking about Depeche Mode and the connection that we have with the band and how that connection changes and flows throughout the years. And going through the exercise of ranking the albums brought back a lot of those feelings. And songs that aren't really strong songs as objectively as you could get with art, because there's some bit of objectivity you can get into, especially when you consider recent Depeche Mode albums' production style to past Depeche Mode albums early in their career when they weren't as experienced with instrumentation and were certainly creating songs in a more simplistic way. But it doesn't matter when you get to the subjective art aspect of it and the connection that the songs have with you. And that really is sort of the magic of this band. I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I can't think of any other band that has made this type of emotional connection with its core fan base. Even when I think about the most popular bands on the planet, I certainly haven't seen evidence of the fans of those bands having the same type of connection that we have to Depeche Mode. Now, it's unfair for me to say that because I'm not within those worlds. But I can look at the fandom, say, around Elvis. And we know just how deep that goes. I mean, that's one of the comparisons I could make, is that, our love of Depeche Mode and the connection we have with this band. Elvis is probably the first person that comes into mind in terms of the connection that he had with the audience. But I still think that Depeche Mode just strikes a different balance within its fandom. And I was thinking about that a lot when I was going through and trying to rank these albums, mostly because even some of the songs and albums that got a lower point score, I'm still going to listen to and would keep these albums and would hang on to these songs before I would 99% of all the other music that I own. So here's what I did. Ranked by track list rating. So I assigned 10 points total for each song. The point score went like this. 10 meant the song was a classic. And then you score down from there until you get down to 2 and 1. A 2 score would means never need to hear it again. And a 1 means you're not missing it at all, didn't need to hear it in the first place. Now, considering that each Depeche Mode album has a different number of tracks, well, there was some consistency in the 9-track average. Okay, so for averaging out, what I decided to do is I decided to look at each album as the 9 strongest tracks. And then I factored in the average of the remaining tracks while also eliminating any tracks that had a 1 rating. I felt this was fair since, from a pure enjoyment perspective, I needed to account fairly for an album with more songs. So if an album has more songs, but overall they've got an average that may be lower than an album that has fewer songs, I have to look at it from, again, a pure enjoyment perspective and recognize that this album here has more tracks, even though this album has fewer and the songs are stronger, and then I had to strike a balance between there. So here's what happened. My list didn't change all that much. Some of the bottom ones did. So if I go back to... So initially, I went Songs of Faith and Devotion, Violator, Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Memento Mori, Some Great Reward, Exciter, Sounds, Ultra, Construction, Playing, A Broken Frame, Delta, Spirit, Speak and Spell. when I got to the 9-track average, it went Songs of Faith and Devotion, Black Celebration, Music for the Masses, Violator. So you had a change up top. Violator dropped to 4. Memento Mori ended up staying at 5. Then I went Some Great Reward, Exciter, Ultra, Sounds of the Universe, Construction Time Again, A Broken Frame, Speak and Spell, playing the Angel, Delta Machine, and Spirit. So for Songs of Faith and Devotion, 10 rated tracks, I got an 89. I removed the lowest track rating at an 8. No song on Faith and Devotion got less than an 8 score from me. I decided it was fair to apply back 6 points for a 9-track rating of 87. You get to Black Celebration. You have 1 track getting a 7. That's It Doesn't Matter 2. Everything else is either a 10 down to an 8. 9-track rated score of 91. Then you get into Music for the Masses, and you got 10 tracks, whereas, again, Black Celebration, 11. Songs of Faith and Devotion, 10. So you get into Music for the Masses, and the tiebreaker between Music for the Masses and Violator, because they both had a 9-track rating of 82, the tiebreaker went for Music for the Masses because of the total number of tracks over Memento Mori, and the lowest rated track of 7 on Violator and Music for the Masses. So all I want to do is pointing out, because I could spend a lot of time going through all of this, and it's a bunch of numbers, and I've probably lost you already. But let me talk a little bit about Memento Mori. Now, Memento Mori, I gave quite a few 7s. So, My Cosmos is Mine, Wagging Tongue, My Favorite Stranger, Soul With Me, Always You, Never Let Me Go, Speak to Me. They all got 7s. Again, 10 being the best, 2 meaning I never had need to hear it again, and 1 doesn't have to be there at all. But then you get like Ghosts Again, I gave a 10. Don't Say You Love Me, I gave a 9. Oh, I'm sorry. Caroline's Monkey ended up with a 6. I struggled with that one, by the way. I do like that song quite a bit, but not enough to give it a 7. Before We Drown, I gave an 8, and People Are Good, I gave an 8. I know compared to the 10s, that might be a little bit unfair based off the popularity of Before We Drown, but it just didn't quite reach to the close to classic status for me to give it a 9 or a 10. And then you move on down the line, and I just want to share with you, like on Some Great Reward, the only songs that got an 8 were Something to Do and Lie to Me for me. Everything else got a 9 or 10. If You Want also got an 8. Exciter scored well at 74 with 11 rated tracks, but overall had quite a few lower tracks. Shine, I gave a 6. Sweetest Condition, I gave a 6. 10, Standout of I Am You. I didn't count instrumentals either. I should probably go and mention that as well. So it wasn't until, let's see, on Ultra, I gave Free State a 4. I think that's the only 4 ranking any song got. And it's not until you get to Sounds in the Universe that we actually get a 1, which means that I'm throwing the track out completely. Hold the Feed goes away. I never needed to hear that song. I've tried so hard. You know how it goes. There's just certain songs, and I tried so hard to like that song, and I just can't. I can't relate to it. I can't get into it. You have Miles Away, Truth Is. I scored at a 3. Although I made a mistake here. I've got Jezebel sitting with a 3, and I actually enjoyed that song more than that. I probably would give it a 4 or a 4 or a 5. Corrupt, I gave an 8. I don't think that track gets nearly enough attention. Let's see. Going through Construction Time Again. We're at number 10 on the ranking. Let's see. Only songs that get a 6. That's the lowest score. Shame. The Landscape is Changing. Again, it might seem unfair, but at a 10 score, it's still pretty good. And then I gave a 6. 7s to More Than a Party in Pipeline. 7 to 2 Minute Warning. A Broken Frame. 6 to Monument. 6 to Satellite. Everything else gets a 7. Leave in Silence, I gave a 10. Let's see. Speak and Spell. This is an interesting one. So Speak and Spell I struggled with because it gets rated due to the nostalgia factor, but technically it was last on the list until I got into the scoring, despite it being rated higher than Delta and Spirit. But I had to make a change because the version that I pulled up had I Sometimes Wish I Was Dead, but I had to remove that because that was not on the U.S. version. So when I first got into the band, I didn't find I Sometimes Wish I Was Dead until years later. So that song was completely unfamiliar to me. So I had to go remove it off. No ones on Speak and Spell, by the way. Puppets gets a 4. Boys Say Go gets... I'm sorry, Puppets gets a 5. Puppets only gets a 5, by the way, because of the Royce Cop remix. That song made me like the original version more than I did before. Because that remix from the remix album was just spectacular. Sounds a little New Order, but it's still fantastic. Boys Say Go gets a 4. No Disco got a 5. What's Your Name got a 4. I probably should have scored that lower now that I think about it. That song's pretty bad. Tora 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 I gave a 5. Photographic I gave a 8. Any Second Now Voices I gave a 9. I love that song. Just Can't Get Enough. I gave it an 8. I don't love that song by any stretch. Somebody recently made a comment, though, about Just Can't Get Enough, and that live, that song is a banger, and I agree. Just Can't Get Enough works a lot better live. And then Dreaming of Me, I gave a 7. All right, I got to move through this quickly. I didn't realize I've been going for 40 minutes now. I don't even know how many I've lost to you. Drop me an email and let me know you're still hanging. Like, Jon Justice, I know you're still there. Matt, I know you're still there. I don't know about anybody else. All right, Delta Machine. Let's see, who got the low scores on Delta? Heaven got a 3. Secret to the End got a 3. Should Be Higher got a 4. Soft Touch Rodner got a 5. Child Inside got a 5. That's kind of worthy of a 6. I like that song more. My Little Universe got a 6. Slow got a 5. Slow would have been great if it had been done when it was written during the Songs of Faith and Devotion era. I know that song was from that era, but that song would have been a lot better with Alan Wilder and Flood's touch on it to beef it up, because I like the lyrics of that song. Alone got a 6. Soothe My Soul got a 4. Goodbye got a 3. That song just doesn't do anything for me. Yeah, Soothe My Soul was another one that, like when I first heard it, I was like, this song's great, and then it kind of faded for me. And I know it's sacrilege for a lot of people, playing the Angel at 14. I have to, and I think I mentioned this last week, but I've got to spend some time with that album again to make some new memories attached to it, because the moment in time when that album came out, the nostalgia burn there just is not a positive one. I did get a 10, though, a pain that I'm used to. Revelator got an 8. Precious gets a 10. Suffer Well a 7. Macro, I Want It All. Those are 4s. Nothing Impossible, Damaged People got 3s. Lillian got a 4. Darker Star got a 3. Again, not throwing any songs away. Spirit, and then we'll wrap up on this. Spirit gets the reward for the most 1-rated tracks that we could throw away. Never needed to hear them in the first place. First one being Scum. You Move got a rare 2. Don't need to ever hear it again, but Eternal, I gave it a 1. It probably deserves a 2. And Poor Man, I gave a 1. Musically, that song had it going for it, but lyrically, it just completely lost me. Worst Crime grew in my book. I gave that a 6. I actually grew to love that song. Cover Me, I gave an 8. Poison Heart, I gave a 9. So Much Love, I gave a 5. No More, This Is the Last Time, got a 5. And Fail gets a 6, only because the drum pattern in that album is absolutely fantastic. All right, before I let you go, and thank you so much for sticking with me. Yeah, email me if you made it through all of that. Listen, only Depeche Mode fans, right, would appreciate that. Like, what I just did on the show... Like, there's no... Like, anybody else who's not a Depeche Mode fan, there's no way. They would have pitched off after I got into the scoring system of what I was doing. So, that's not to say that if you left, you're not a true Depeche Mode fan. But if you're still here listening, you can count yourself as higher than the rest, in my opinion. All right, as always, before I let you go, if you want to support my nerd world, I hope you'll go and pick up my science fiction series. I know it's odd. It's a Depeche Mode podcast, but I love sci-fi. Many of you already have, and I appreciate it. But if you read and you like science fiction, and you like a little bit of romance, a lot of action, Depeche Mode references, end-of-the-world stuff, space operas, check out my series. 7 books at all. Available on ebook, Kindle Unlimited, hardcover, paperback, and audiobook at Amazon.com or mynerdworld.net. All right. Thank you so much for hanging out. I appreciate it. I'll be back next week. We'll talk about the Mexico tour shows. Any new information that happens to roll my way. Until that time, I hope wherever you are happy, you are healthy, you are safe, and congratulations for sticking with the podcast as long as you did. You are a mega Depeche Mode fan. It'll be our secret to everybody else who left early. Talk to you then. Have a great one. Bye.
Hello, this is Martin